Good morning. As you know, the bill on health care just passed out of the Senate Help Committee on party line. There's a good reason for that. The President set some goals. The President said that everyone should be covered, that if you like what you have, you can keep it, that we needed to drive down the cost of health care, and that it should be paid for. That bill gets an F. It does not cover any of those things. It's a tragedy because health care affects 1/6 of the American economy. In fact, it affects every single American. It affects every single business. It affects every single provider. This is the most comprehensive thing that we have ever addressed in the United States Senate, because we've never had anything that affected everybody. It's important that we get it right. That bill got it wrong. We tried through a long process of amendments to get it right. We had to do it through amendments because the Democrats drafted the bill. And I do remember in the election they said we won the election, we get to draft the bills. But that's not bipartisan. The only way that we had any input was to do amendments. And we did a bunch of amendments to point out the flaws in the bill. And I hope people will take a look at that, and we'll talk about that some this morning, because this bill will not meet any of the presidential goals. We've had speed in the drafting process. We allowed the bill to come to committee with only half of it drafted, and later we got the other half. The reason the other half didn't come is because it drove up costs even more. We're talking about $1 trillion problem that this bill will cause, and it will cover less people. It's also a travesty for small business. I have some other people here that will cover a number of these issues, but the bill fails what it was set out to do. I hope there's still a chance to correct it for the sake of Americans. They need to have insurance. They need to be covered when they have pre-existing conditions. They need to have portability. We had 5 Republican bills that answered all of the things that the President said, all of the goals that we set out. And we had to do those through amendments, and they were virtually turned down. It was kind of the impression we got was that if it was suggested by a Republican, it has to be bad. And that's bad for America. I'll call on Senator Gregg for some comments.
Thank you, Senator Enzi, and thank you for your leadership during these last few weeks, many weeks, as we've marked up this bill. You know, the President threw out the first pitch last night for the All-Star game, but today the Democratic membership of the Health Committee struck out on the issue of the President's initiatives in health care. He set out 3 standards. First, that all Americans should be covered. Well, this bill leaves 34 million people uncovered. Second, that this bill, that the out-year cost curve should be bent, that we should get under control the cost of health care because it's going to bankrupt our country. This bill doesn't do that either. It adds over $1 trillion potentially to the debt of the United States, $1 trillion. And thirdly, he said nobody should lose their health care if they wanted to keep it, their health insurance. This bill doesn't make that, doesn't reach that issue either. In fact, people are going to lose their insurance under this. Not only are they going to lose their insurance, they're actually going to lose their job. According to the studies, small business will be massively impacted by this, and a lot of jobs will be lost in America. There are ways we can accomplish what the President wants to do. I have proposals. Senator Coburn, Senator Burr has specific proposals where we can cover all Americans, where we can bend the out-year costs of health care, and we can make sure that Americans who like their health insurance get to keep their health insurance. It's just regrettable we were not allowed to be at the table when this bill was drafted so that we could have gotten those ideas into the bill. It was equally regrettable that when we did offer amendments, which were in many instances addressing the issues which the President has raised as his primary concerns, they unfortunately failed because they came from our side of the aisle.